I'm Lauren Green, and you're in the Strategy Room. In an interview with Brett Baier late last week, former Arkansas governor and former Fox News host Mike Huckabee seems likely to jump into the 2016 presidential race next month. Huckabee, who won in Iowa in 2008, has acknowledged the landscape this go-around. It will be different than his first run for the White House. Joining us to discuss are Taryn Rosenkranz, founder and CEO of New Blue Interactive, and Liz Peek, columnist with the Fiscal Times. Taryn, let me start with you. I want to give a full disclosure because, of course, I played on Huckabee's show here at Fox News, so I know Mike, and a nice guy, but what do you think his chances are in 2016?
Well, I think, it seems right now, at least from the Democratic perspective, that we just saw news that Hillary is really dominating in the polls, which is great from our perspective. And I think with Huckabee, he's going to have to do something and do something big if he wants to stand out in what is turning into a potentially really crowded GOP primary.
Liz, what do you think?
Well, I think there are a lot of people in contention, that's for sure. The issue for Huckabee is that he has a very strong pull with evangelicals, possibly Catholics, and he has enormous name recognition. On the flip side, there are a lot of other people who are going to be reaching out to the same communities. It's not like 2008 where he was sort of the lone voice out there. Mm-hmm. So I actually think this election, with all due respect, is about new faces, new ideas, new personalities emerging. And on that basis, he isn't going to be in the forefront. He's polling well right now, one of the leaders, but again, I think that's his name recognition, not because of his effectiveness on the stump.
Well, let's look at the poll. Real Clear Politics poll shows him right about 8.3%. Now, he hasn't announced yet. Rand Paul and Marco Rubio obviously have, and Ted Cruz, and they're ahead of him right now in the polls. But you mentioned his appeal to conservatives, and you've got Scott Walker there, who has not announced yet, and yet he is ahead of Mike Huckabee. So in that sense, what does Mike Huckabee have to do to stand out from his Republican rivals, Liz?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we hope it won't be that he really goes after his Republican rivals, which we haven't seen much of yet, but Huckabee's the kind of campaigner who could definitely make this a personality contest a little bit and start deriding his rivals, which I hope he doesn't do. But I think he has to come up with some policies that are really unusual, make a really big opening speech. I mean, what we've seen is the launch is pretty important. I mean, you're right, Scott Walker's doing really well without having launched, but everybody else gets a big bump from that, and then it's a question of the aftermath. Rand Paul hasn't done well on that. Marco Rubio has. We'll see how he comes out of the gate.
So, Taryn, what do you say? I mean, what does Mike Huckabee have to do to kind of stand out?
Well, I will say I definitely think he's going to have to do something that kind of distinguishes him. Right now, you've got a lot of people who are making splashes and really making headlines, if you will, with both their announcements and with endorsements from other people. I mean, he's got to really kind of find a way to cut through all of that clutter and really position himself as the one that can beat Hillary, and that is the voice of reason, if you will, for the Republican Party, and that people will kind of flock to. I mean, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of Walker buzz right now, even with the Koch brothers saying, he's the one to beat, and you've got Jeb Bush, and everybody wants to see that Bush v. Clinton, matchup again. So I think, it's going to be really important for him to distinguish why he is different than the rest of them, and why he's the one who will be sort of this, because I do think some people are arguing that the Republican Party is a bit lost right now, and that he's the new face of it or the new voice of it. And I think that'll be important for him to do.
It's very interesting because Huckabee won in Iowa in 2008. We keep talking about that, but I go back to Scott Walker from Wisconsin, who is a very close proximity geographically to Iowa, but not only that, it is close in terms of culture. I'm from Minnesota. That's the 5-state area. How can he actually distinguish himself specifically from Scott Walker?
I think it's tough because he's been out of office for a long time, and there is certainly some enthusiasm for governors. We've seen what it's like to have a first-term senator in the White House with no governing experience. Most Republicans think that's a big problem, and that's going to be settled onto Rand Paul and the other, Marco Rubio, the other first-term senators. So there is some appetite for a governor. I think Huckabee's just sort of been out of it too long. And Scott Walker has serious credentials in terms of reforming various aspects of this state. And that's pretty powerful right now, and I think that's going to resonate, and that's why he's in the lead and why the Koch brothers are possibly going to fund him. They haven't really said that definitively, but it looks that way.
All right, I want to get your predictions on how will the governor fare in the GOP primaries. Taryn, what do you think?
I think it's a little too soon to tell, but I'll tell you this. I think if he comes out with a bang, he's going to be doing a lot better.
Okay, and Liz, what do you think?
Iowa, clearly he's going to do better than New Hampshire. New Hampshire is going to be nowhere. South Carolina is a toss-up, but I really wouldn't give it to him at this point.
Yeah. All right. I want to thank you so much, Liz and Taryn. I want to check out foxnews.com for more on the 2016 race. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.